The Minnesota Timberwolves lost Nickeil Alexander-Walker today in free agency, in which he left them to join the Atlanta Hawks. Nickeil Alexander-Walker agreed to a 4-year, $62 million deal. This is actually a pretty good deal, I feel, for the Atlanta Hawks. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, to me, is one of those prototype 3-and-D players that every team wants. So those guys are always going to be high in value. And this was a great signing, like I said, by the Hawks. But I think this is a huge loss for the Minnesota Timberwolves because he was like their only good perimeter player they had coming off their bench. When you think about guys who can guard 2s and 3s, they have DiVincenzo, but to me, he's more like a 1 and a 2. He can't really guard the 3s. While Nickeil Alexander-Walker was versatile, he could guard 3 perimeter positions. Now they don't have that. One thing I have to say, which I find funny now, is I remember when the Timberwolves traded Cat last year, they felt they had to trade Cat to keep their team together, to keep their depth together. And one of their arguments was that they had to do this trade to keep Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Well, apparently that wasn't the case now, was it? They essentially gave up Cat for nothing, I would say. Granted, I know some people say, well, Julius wasn't bad and DiVincenzo's not bad, but still, like, the point of that trade was to keep the depth. So now if you're not going to keep the depth, that really makes that trade kind of like a null and void type of trade, or just a mute type of trade, that there was really no point in doing that if you're just going to be cheap asses and not keep the team together, which they didn't. Now, maybe things will work out for the Timberwolves. I remember last year they had a dynamic rookie who didn't play a lot last year by the name of Terrence Shannon Jr., but when I saw him play, he showed sparks of being a guy that could be a really good player. To me, he kind of reminded me of Latrell Sprewell in the minutes he got. He had that quickness, that speed, just a good jump shot, good finishing abilities. Maybe this is them saying that they fully believe in this guy, that they think he's going to take a huge jump next year. That could be the case. That might be the reason they were willing to take this risk. Now, if Terrence Shannon Jr. ends up being a good player for them next year, then this move won't hurt them. But if he does not end up being a good player for them next year, this move will definitely hurt them. So just one thing to keep an eye on. Now, when it comes to the Atlanta Hawks, I have to say they are making some power moves. When you look at some of the stuff that they have done, they have signed, they traded for Porzingis. Now they got Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And I remember they did some trades on the draft to move up. I forgot who they traded for on the draft, but they have done a few boss moves. And the way things are lining up for them right now, they have a very, very good chance of going back to the playoffs next season as long as they stay healthy. So you got to commend the Hawks for making all these power moves right now. They're playing the offseason very smartly and strategically. I think they know next year the East is wide open, so they're going for it, and you have to respect the moves that they're making. On a side note, it'll be interesting to see how Anthony Edwards feels about the moves the Wolves have made so far, especially with releasing Nickeil Alexander-Walker, how he feels about it going forward. Now, this might seem like a little thing, but remember, they got rid of Cat when he didn't want them to get rid of Cat. And now if they got rid of this guy because if they got rid of this guy and he didn't want them to get rid of Alexander-Walker, that could be another rift with him and the front office that long-term could affect them in the future, whether or not he decides to play in Minnesota long-term. So that's one thing to keep in mind going forward. I don't have anything else to say about this.